Welcome to the Hacking Your Health podcast with Ben Canning and Dave Kennedy. Two guys heading out to hack body, mind, business, and beyond. We are here to provide a single source, bullshit-free guide to understanding your body and how you can live better for longer.
Yo, what's up, everybody? Just before we get into this week's podcast, I'd like to take a second to say two things. Number one, thanks for tuning in once again. We wouldn't be here if it weren't for every listen, every download, every watch. Secondly, if you can take time to subscribe to wherever you listen to or watch us, it would be greatly appreciated, and it would do a lot for us and the show. Thanks. Enjoy this week's episode. Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome back. I am Ben Canning.
And I'm Dave Kennedy.
I'm multitasking Dave Kennedy, and this is Hacking Your Health Podcast. I can hear you typing.
I was typing, but I stopped as soon as you started talking.
Okay. What's going on? How are you?
I'm doing a lot better. You know, if you listen to this last week's podcast, we recorded that on Monday. Now it's Friday today. So I've had a little bit of time to recover. I'm still not fully recovered yet. And yesterday I was like, man, I feel amazing. So like yesterday I felt like $1 million. I went and did an awesome workout, and man, I crashed so hard. I felt so bad. Not after the workout, but like later on in the day. So like throughout the day, I was like fantastic, and then I just died. I had to go to my kids. My daughter Morgan is in orchestra, and so is my son. He's in the ninth grade orchestra, and so they had an orchestra meeting there, and I made it through my daughters, and I'm like, I need to get the hell out of here. It was like hot in the room. I felt like total crap, and I was just like, okay, it's time to
getting
go.
progressively worse.
Yeah, I was getting worse. I'm like, what the hell? Like what's going on here? I thought I was supposed to be getting over this, but. But it's been a long week. I'm looking forward to the weekend, and looking forward to just kind of chilling and relaxing and recovering and doing all that good stuff, which, I won't do. I'll be lifting. And
chilling and relaxing, a.k.a. trying to hit PRs.
A.k.a. legs day Saturday. So how about you?
Double sessions.
First of all, I just want to say your pictures from your photo shoot turned out absolutely amazing. You look jacked as hell. I mean, it's amazing what they could do with Photoshop, dude.
Actually, I actually do want to touch on that as a full transparency, honest, the conversation around it, because I posted about it earlier on, and then I was chatting to Louise back and forward, and I had a bit of mixed emotions about the photos essentially, and I've been trying all day to sort of find a way that I can articulate how I feel about them and about the process. I want to caveat it by saying I have done this. That'll be the third shoot that I have done. The reason that I did it was a bit of a point-proving tactic, as calling bullshit to anybody who has any excuses about not having time, being busy, being a parent, blah, 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 whatever excuse. Also to sort of, I guess, because James sort of peer pressured me into it. But I also really wanted to shoot with Chris, the photographer, who is absolutely a great guy. He did a lot of lifestyle stuff for me before. He's an absolutely incredible photographer. He's the guy that shoots all the professional bodybuilders at the Olympia. He's the dude. So I've wanted to shoot with him. He has that really cool studio in Nottingham. So I have wanted to shoot with him for a long time. But sort of off the back, I guess, of the conversation that we had with James a couple of weeks back about how coaches get into coaching, or coaches become coaches because they're a little bit fucked up in the head, or they're trying to navigate their own problems. And whenever I was sort of going through the photos, you become so critical of yourself, and I haven't really thought of myself in that way in a long time. And I was sort of over analyzing the pictures and almost picking out flaws or picking out things that I would have been insecure about in the past. Mm-hmm. And that's what I mean about how it was a bit of it was mixed emotions around it. Now, don't get me wrong, the photos I'm really, really happy with 100%, but it just sent me down a bit of a rabbit hole that I didn't expect to happen. So yeah, it was a bit of a strange experience, but I wanted to share that because I think that, people sort of will look at them and be like, oh, I fucking look great. And I'm like, yeah, I do. I feel great and blah, 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 whatever. But you also need to remember that everything that goes into being at that sort of peak at that time will leave you feeling like shit. You will look your best, but you will feel your worst. And then you do become super critical and like, you know, even comparing from shoots before, I'm like, why haven't I progressed more in this and blah, blah, blah. And it's just a total spiral out of control rabbit hole. But glad I did it. Glad I have them. I've toyed with this idea back and forward or not, whether I'll do a shoot again. I'm going to say I will do a shoot again, and I will do it with Bailey, and it will be potentially like 2 years down the line when I spent loads of time putting on loads of muscle and have a night and day difference to be able to compare the two of them. But it was a great experience, but it just an odd, I only got them back this morning, just an odd feeling around them. But yeah, it was an interesting one.
It's interesting you say that too, because first of all, I've never gone through what you experienced in that specific situation. But, you know, if you look at, you know, where my progress is today, I'm always critical of various things in my body, you know, like all the time. Like I'm like, you know, this isn't defined here in my chest, or I notice that I have excess skin because I used to be overweight and I have, you know, I carry the excess skin there. And I'm always super conscious about my, you know, impurities, I guess, of not having that perfect physique, you know, or body. But, you know, at the same time, you know, I take a step back and I say, look at where you're at right now. And this is the best you've ever been in your entire life. And you're only continuing to get better. You know, you should be proud of what you've been able to build, and notice that you are going to have flaws. You are going to have scars, and you are going to have things that aren't going to be perfect. You know, it's funny because you recognize those more than anybody else does. Yeah. You know, when I looked at your photos, I'm like, oh my God, that's a perfect physique right there for you. I mean, that looks awesome, right? I didn't notice any impurities or anything that was wrong or anything that, you know, I would be like, oh, I can't believe, you know, his right nipple is a little bit higher than.
So you did notice.
I just made that up. So if your right nipple is higher, then that was a really good shot.
That's not something that I've ever checked, but maybe I've got to measure.
Yeah, I'm going to look at that now and see your right nipple's a little higher.
We'll just say that the camera angle was off. But you're exactly right, and you do essentially, like, it's such a weird mindset to get into, but the more progress that you make, the more critical you become of yourself. So like, right now, you're the leanest that you've ever been, hands down. There's no question about it. But you're still picking out things that you would like to change and want to be different. Yeah. But if you were 320 pounds, Dave, there was no way that you would comprehend or could comprehend that you could ever look like you look now.
No. And if I showed a picture of Dave today to you know, 320 pound Dave, I'd be like, no, that's not me. There's no way that's me. Yeah. Like, there's no way. That's never happening, right? You know, like, it just wouldn't happen.
But you're now super critical about the small things that I guess, you know, tell the story along the way. Like, you're talking about the excess skin or scars or whatever way that you look at yourself. But there are things that you live with every single day that other people will notice. And again, like, people can look at before and after pictures and just see the comparison of the two things, but they don't live, or they don't understand the sort of thought process or the mental things that go through it. And that's essentially why I don't always like just before and after photos by themselves, because they don't necessarily tell the full story of what had to go into that, what had to happen after, like how you actually feel in both photos, like a whole other rabbit hole. But yeah, long story short, I'm glad I did it. I did say to Louise earlier, because she was asking me about it, and I actually read out what she said, and it was actually quite accurate as well, because she was trying to get it out of me, and I was like, I want to talk about it in the podcast and actually get my words in line. So she said, let me guess, you enjoy the journey more than the destination. Health is for life and not just for a photo shoot. And your business has changed so much that having a photo shoot is not necessary, which all of those things are essentially true as well, but not necessarily what I was thinking. To sort of carry out all that. Yeah, for sure. Like, I did enjoy the journey, and I'm glad I did it, and I'm glad I was able to challenge myself. And, you know, I posted on Instagram about this earlier on, like at the start of July, I sort of made a decision that I'm going to put my head down and really focus on myself and focus on business and just see what can get done in a sort of 6-month block of like distraction free and just getting it done. And like, I'll be the first to admit I'm proud of myself, and I've fucking nailed a lot of things, and it's been good. So I'm glad I've done it, but I wasn't expecting this sort of thought process this morning. But she's exactly right. Like, I didn't necessarily need to do the photo shoot for business or whatever else, but the sort of other side of the coin on that is, like, the last couple of times I did it, I was in a completely different season, I guess, of my life. Mm-hmm. Like, I wasn't a parent. I didn't have as many clients to look after. I was working on the gym floor, so I was always in the gym. I just lived a completely different life. So to still be able to do it is good. It's good to know that I still got it. I'm not like living off the photos that I got done. What will be 7 years ago.
Yeah,
I have up to date ones. I'm not catfishing anybody. Yeah, I'm legit. I can still do it.
It's impressive. I mean, and it's funny because I got to watch you through all of those phases of, going through this cutting phase and getting ready for the shoot, right? And your struggles. And, like, it's funny because when you first started, you're like, oh, this isn't too bad. And then you start like, obsessively watching Food Network shows and, smelling food and just, but it was really cool because, you were committed, you were dedicated, you knew what you wanted to accomplish and you put your mind to it. And you had so much foundation built up in this house of your journey and your fitness and understanding around what you could do, how far you could push it, as well as somebody there, your trainer, mentoring you and pushing you and making sure that you're on the right track. And, it was all done methodically. It was all done within reason. It was all done with things that you knew you could do. And you nailed it even with travel and going all over the place and eating different types of foods and, remaining within balance and not drinking a ton. You went through the phases because you have the discipline to go and do that. And many people listening to this podcast, may not be their desire to ever do a photo shoot, but the same principles of what you went through apply to everybody that's listening to this podcast right now, to different extremes. Having the foundational knowledge around calories, having the foundational knowledge around when you need to cut versus when you need to put muscle mass on, and having the confidence in yourself to be successful and to put your mind to it and to not stray and sit there and eat pizza every day and not get back on the bandwagon to your foundation, your health. These things are principles that we need to live by in this society. And it's things that we didn't have to worry about, 10,000 years ago when we were out foraging food because it naturally came to us. But today, with what we know and how much food is available, food is literally delivered to our doors. It's delicious. It's high calories. We can eat whatever we want to. We have to be very mindful of our health and our longevity. And I think that, what you show here is kind of the peak of that, right? Of being able to, go from bulking up and spending a lot of time putting on muscle to, hey, I'm going to course correct and see what I did here and build and do a photo shoot and put my mind to it. And here's the date. I know I have a destination. Now what do I need to do to meet that destination to get there, right? And that's really cool to see the different phases of what you went through. And I had a small taste of it. I have a small taste of it right now, but I look forward to doing that in the future too. Once I have enough foundation built up,
you will. Don't worry,
I will. 100%.
And the thing, to sort of touch on the time frame thing, like it was a tight time frame because I remember speaking to James Ridgely, and it was like, I'm pretty sure it was like 10. It was either 8 or 10 weeks. I'm going to say 10 weeks. It was 10 weeks until the date of the shoot when we first spoke about it. And I think in between that 10-week period, I had at least 5 weeks of travel. And I was like, this is a fucking recipe for disaster. Like, there's no way I can pull this off. But as you said, I had the foundations. I had the support network. I had the motivation to do it. I had the discipline to get it done. And essentially, like, yes, okay, everybody's goal might not be to do a photo shoot. And I mean, I would recommend it if you really want to push yourself to that, but I would never recommend it if it's like I feel like I have to do it kind of thing. But for me, it was about being able to sort of throw a middle finger up to everybody's excuses to take it to an extreme. So, you can't tell me that, I can't lose 10 pounds in this period because I've got travel and blah, 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 blah. I'm like, I can literally peak in that time period and still have all that shit to deal with. So your excuses are bullshit, essentially, was the reasoning behind why I did it.
Yeah. And I mean, pushing yourself to the max and saying, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it. It's what this is all about, right?
Yeah. And actually, like, the sort of, to bring the whole all the pieces of the puzzle together, like, I did the shoot on it was the last week of October, I think. 10 days before launching a completely new coaching program. So it was like, how can I launch essentially a new business and peak in terms of my physique at the same time, like back to back? So I think I did a pretty good job. And what's going on with Hacks and how it's sort of grown and how everybody's taken to it and how everybody's contributing, what's going on there, like, has far exceeded my expectations at the start. And it's so great to see other people just embracing everything that we talk about, that, bettering themselves and whatever else. And I went through everybody's week 4 check-in today, and I'm going to put together some cool data points of like the whole group as a whole. But the one that I've worked out so far is the total amount of pounds lost across the whole group. Now, I will caveat this by saying not everybody is on a weight loss journey. But as a group as a whole, they've lost a total of 279.4 pounds, which is absolutely insane.
That's a whole person plus somebody, I mean, that's crazy.
It is absolutely insane, but it's so cool to see. It's so cool to see, how everybody's supporting each other. And I honestly, I couldn't ask for more from it. Obviously this week as well, we launched the mainframe side of things, which is the education portal, which I'm really excited for as well. And I sort of spent, number one, I will say, I never thought that I would be in a position that I had to worry about my clients hacking into my members only site before they got the fucking login. I
saw those posts
at the weekend. I was like,
hey, you got a user enumeration issue here, blah, blah, blah. Like, come on, you just launched 2 seconds ago. That's what we do, though. That's what we do. Yeah. That's what we do.
I have to laugh as Louis. He's like, you've got unlimited pen tests here. I was like, yeah, fair enough. Okay. Usually I'd have to pay for that shit. But no, it's so cool to see, like, actually people want the information. And I think sort of over the past couple of days, once I got it out to everybody, the best thing about it for me, that I think for anybody who has access to it, is it will literally be built around an industry of people who suffer with the same or struggle with the same issues or problems. So it'll be so tailored to the industry as a whole, because it'll be built with the struggles that I see in check-ins or have seen in check-ins, but also feedback that I get or requests that I have from you or anybody else who wants to train in. Like, I'll literally build trainings around what the struggles are. So essentially it should be a one-stop shop for every problem that you should ever have in terms of managing your fitness, your health, your mindset, whatever it is.
Well, I think that's been the cool part to see the whole program come together, right? The one-to-many options of being able to put a framework and structure in place that allows you to expand your capacity and still have just as big of an impact on a group of people. And it's really cool to see, we always talk about having a trainer is really important, somebody that can kind of guide you through, but also the community aspects of things. And it's been really cool to see that chat just be alive with people going nuts and working with each other, learning new things, pushing each other, motivating each other, having fun. All that stuff has been really cool. And it's just a growing machine that, is having an impact on a lot of people. I mean, 279 pounds is absolutely incredible. That's crazy.
I can't wait to have that data in a year. Do you know what I mean? It's like, that's 4 weeks. I'm like, when more people come, like, what is that going to look like over a year? So it's going to be very cool. And the one thing that I will say, like, the group as a whole has been so supportive of everybody else in it, but it's so funny. It's like, someone will ask a question and like 2 or 3 people will answer or give their answer or their feedback, but at the end they'll be like, but I'm not Ben. Like, as if this is what I think, but I'm not taking full responsibility if that's not the right answer. But yeah, it's very cool to see everybody supporting. Like, I genuinely couldn't ask for more from them.
So that brings us into our topic for today. Since Ben and I were both fairly sick this week.
No, I'm not admitting that I was sick. I was 1% recovery. I was 3 degrees warmer in terms of my body temperature. I didn't really sleep well. I was coughing shit up, but I will not admit that I was sick.
Yeah. So Ben wasn't sick in quotation marks, but he was sick. And what's interesting is, this time of the season, they're predicting that, I just heard that the flu season's supposed to start like around December 15th. And over here, it's just rampant. It's everywhere. Everybody's sick. The hospitals are overwhelmed. And a lot of it has to do with, we didn't have built up immunity from, the lockdowns and the COVID stuff and everything else. So our immune systems have to basically be immersed into this awfulness of what we're experiencing today. And I normally don't get as sick as I did this week ever. I was laid out. It was bad. And what I think we wanted to cover today was the importance of training and getting back on, but also the importance of listening to your body and not destroying yourself. I will admit to something that happened this week, and I'm not proud of it because it's dangerous. And I think, did I tell you about this?
I don't know.
I think I did. I was being stupid and I was trying to do a chest press with dumbbells and I blacked out. Luckily it was, controlled enough to where I saw like, hey, I'm not feeling good. And I'm starting to feel like really lightheaded. So I set the dumbbells down and I basically, blacked out for a little bit. And
like a little bit, how long? Is that the photo that you sent me? You didn't give me the context of what actually happened. You said, I tried this and it didn't happen.
Yeah. So I started seeing stars, the music stopped, and I just put my hands on my face and I just, it was probably just for a few seconds. And, I've had that happen before too. If I'm doing like really strenuous, like deadlifts where, like maybe the blood, rushes too fast to your face. And then, from there you get like really dizzy and lightheaded. Never like actually passed out. And I didn't really fully pass out here. I was still like conscious. But it was couldn't
see anything or hear anything or get up.
Right. And so,
What Not to Do When You're Sick by Dave Kennedy.
Correct. And I knew that I shouldn't have been working out that day, but I'd already taken a full day off. So I listened to myself and I said, hey, I need to give myself a day to relax and not lift. So I didn't lift. I listened to my body. The second day though, I'm like, well, I gave myself a break. I'm sure I can do some decent weights today. I'm not going to try to PR. I'm not going to try to kill myself. I'm just going to try to do it. And it was just too much. And so, I learned my lesson there really, during these times where you're super sick and you're not feeling well, take the time off. And obviously I'm sick. I was doing this in my basement of my house, in my gym. So I wasn't like, in a public area getting people sick or anything like that. But it was definitely one of those things that, I wish I would have listened more to my body and taken time off. And today I got a lift in and I'm feeling a lot better than I was the past few days, but I know I'm not 100%. So I didn't really try to kill myself today, trying to take it easy. And that was a good day. I should have waited to today to lift versus, the past few days where I've done it. So, but what I want to emphasize with this whole story though, is where I think a lot of people stray is getting out of their habits. And whenever you have a break, whether it's an injury, whether it's you're being sick, whether it's you had a rough night at the bar and you ate a ton of pizza, getting back on the train is the most important thing that you could possibly do. Yeah, you had a bad day or a bad week, or you had a month of recovery and you're just killing yourself, because you had all this progress and all of a sudden you had a setback. That's a month. Okay, who cares? You're back on it the next time and you're back on that train. You're building back up again. You're getting even stronger. You have to hop back onto those habits, or else those habits are no longer habits. And you start to make excuses for why you didn't go this day, or why you didn't go this day, or why didn't you do this, or why didn't you eat right this day? And you start to, tell yourself it's okay. And eventually you get back to your normal routines. And that's really where the danger starts to happen, where you start to lose control. You start to lose all the hard work that you've already done, and just let it slide. For me, the reason why I lifted while I was sick is I didn't want to miss a day of possibly getting stronger. That's my mindset. Now, again, 2 days in retrospect is not going to be anything for me, right? So I'm on the exact opposite spectrum of, I know I'm going to hop back onto doing the same stuff all the time, but I do need some time to recover. So, listen to your body, try to take care of yourself, but also I think the habits that you form is extremely important.
Yeah, and I will give you some credit here. Like, you didn't go to Orange Theory, which number one is obviously a public place. You don't want to bring that shit to them. But number two, like, if you're saying that you were having like respiratory issues, like high intensity interval training is not the thing that you want to be doing. So give yourself some credit on that. But yeah, I think the biggest problem that I see, and it's like you said, it's not even just with illness or sickness. It's like, obviously it's coming up to the holidays, and we spoke about this in a previous podcast, but I'm dealing with it sort of like day by day with the specific clients that are, maybe traveling for 3 or 4 weeks to go and see family or whatever. And I'm like, the worst thing that you can do is not stick to your routine, because essentially, no matter how long it is that you take off, it's going to be infinitely harder to get that back. So if you can maintain even when you're sick, if you can maintain a relatively normal schedule in terms of like time that you get up, the usual stuff that you do, maybe it doesn't need to include, a strenuous weightlifting session. It could be go for a walk or some light cardio, as we'll discuss in a minute. But I think, having something that you're still doing the things that you usually do, so it's not like you're starting again. And it's that, like, quote unquote, fell off the wagon. It's like you can still be on the wagon a little bit, and you just don't need to be fully on it, I guess is the best way I can describe it. So trying to maintain those routines as much as possible, especially coming into this time of year, because everybody just seems to be falling down around us. So the more that you can sort of stay as in routine as possible, the better. And there's a couple of things that I want to touch on in terms of what you can do to sort of help the immune system and sort of try and fight the fires before they get out of hand.
Yeah. And I think, I felt like I was kind of immune to this stuff because I'd gotten COVID and it was really mild for me. I'd gotten sick like a month ago, and it was relatively mild. I had, a cough and some other stuff, but I felt relatively fine. This one was kind of an eye opener for me because it really hit me hard. I mean, I was
reminder
really
that you're a human.
Reminder that I'm human, but I'm doing all the right things to keep my immune system up. I'm doing all the right things to try to keep myself healthy. And it was funny because, well, not funny, but my kids all got sick, and they all got it kind of like one in a row. And then Aaron and I were fine, and then all of a sudden Aaron got it, and then I was like, okay, I think I'm good. And then I got sick the day that I really did not need to get sick. I was speaking in front of 1,000 people and I started feeling like shit that day. I'm like, out of all the times that happen, but at least it wasn't like upper respiratory at that part. I was just kind of feeling like I'm getting sick. So, I finally, I was able to get through that and make it through. But, at the end of the day, taking care of ourselves and our body, boosting our immune systems, but also, like right now during the holiday timeframes when we have time off with family, we're eating tons of food. There's food readily available, high calorie foods readily available. Our routines are going to be jacked up a bit because we're not used to, like we incorporate lifting into our workout, our work routines, what we have from a schedule perspective. Our schedules are changing. So we have to be mindful of that as we go through the season. And, I'd say it's probably the toughest time right now to stay consistent, but it's absolutely doable. And, even if you don't stay consistent, making sure you get back to consistency, I think is such an important piece. And that's nutrition, that's your mindset, that's your, workout routines. All of those things play a critical role in what you're trying to accomplish these times.
Yeah. And I think the thing that I sort of try to get across to everybody is managing your expectations as much as possible. So with all the will in the world, no matter who you are or what's going on, like there are infinite shit shows thrown at you in the month of December, whether it's parties, Christmas parties, nights out, everybody wants to see you because they haven't seen you all year, actual Christmas or sickness or illness or whatever it is. So you need to be realistic. And the thing that I've sort of said across the board is like up until the week before Christmas, we'll sort of try to stick to things as much as possible and then happy to pull back in terms of like just move to like a maintenance mode. And if you can maintain where you're at in that sort of 2-week period over Christmas and that fucking weird week between Christmas and New Year that nothing actually happens, then you're doing pretty good. Like in my eyes, that's a success. Whereas if you go into it thinking two things, number one, that you're going to continue to progress, you're likely going to set yourself up for failure. Maybe you will and whatever, but 9 times out of 10, you're probably not going to. Or secondly, if you just completely write it off, like if you go into the week and be like, this is going to be a fucking shit show and write it off at the start, it will be a fucking shit show and you will write the whole week off. So be realistic with the days that you know are going to be slightly higher in terms of calories, or you're going to be busy, or you're not going to get your workout in, and just navigate the weeks slightly differently. So if you need to move a workout around, or you need to front load calories or back load calories or front load steps or front load cardio or whatever way you need to do it, just think a bit ahead and sort of prepare as much as possible coming into holiday season, or managing it around sickness or whatever it needs to be. But manage the expectations on both sides. Don't just use it as an excuse to fucking go off the rails and be like, oh, I'll start in January. Manage it. You can still sort of maintain the level you're at. And I'm going to make sure every single member of both client groups is going to maintain where they're at and not lose their shit over the holidays, myself included.
And same here. I'm going to be focusing very much on protein intake first, trying to count my calories and being truthful to myself. And that goes not just for the season, but also, when you're logging your calories, if you're logging your calories, being truthful to what you're actually putting into your body and actually adding that. If you're cheating yourself, you should put that in there as a reminder of, hey, I went too much in calories. What can I shave off to maybe keep myself in a caloric deficit? So, being truthful to yourself during these times and making sure that, when you start going into this, you are going into it with a plan of action to be successful when maybe you've struggled before in the past without a plan. So these are all things that you can absolutely start to build as habits throughout these timeframes, and ones where, just like Ben had a goal of having a photo shoot at a certain time, having a goal during these periods of times to work you through your challenges and struggles with desserts and things like that, definitely something that's doable for yourself and to hold yourself accountable for.
Yeah, I was watching a Alex Hormozi video last week at some point. He was talking about building businesses, but the sort of analogy he was using is transferable to what we're talking about here. He talks about effort and sacrifice being two sides of the same coin. And essentially what I took from that is you need to look at what you're willing to put the effort into and what you're willing to sacrifice. So if we think about the rest of the month, you're maybe going to have to make more of an effort to prep your food or plan things a little bit better because time's going to be a bit tighter, or move your schedule around or whatever it needs to be, or put a little bit more effort in your training sessions because there is a sort of abundance of calories. And there will be things that you need to sacrifice on, whether it is, a third dessert on Christmas, or whether it is, drinks out at the staff party or whatever it is. Like all these things you don't necessarily quote unquote need. It is a decision that you make. And yeah, I get in the moment it's difficult, peer pressure, blah, blah, blah. But essentially it's a decision you make, and a decision that will have some sort of reaction that you'll have to deal with as your future self. So if you think about the effort and sacrifice being two sides of the same coin, I think that's an important way to look at it.
So what do you do for immunity during these time frames to keep yourself boosted up?
Well, over the weekend, I had sort of noticed that I just had, like, full disclosure, since I got back from New York, I think, I had just sort of been like on the bounce, essentially. Like, I hadn't really got ahead of anything. So I was like eating out of convenience, and I was just doing things where I wasn't really planning ahead. And I started to notice that I hadn't really been eating like full meals, essentially. Like, I was eating, I would have eggs and a bagel for breakfast, which is fine, but there's no like real nutrients aside from the eggs in it. And then I would have my oats, and then I would have some cereal, and then I'd have some snacks, and then like I'd have one sort of whole meal. I was like, I'm missing a lot of like micronutrients, essentially. And obviously we've had quite an extensive conversation about fiber, and we've listened to 3 hours and 48 minutes of Andrew Huberman talking about it too. And I sort of thought, right, how can I combat this to make me feel better? Because I was starting to feel run down because I wasn't getting the usual stuff that I needed from my food. My number one go-to for immune system, and anybody who ever mentions any sort of sickness, if they've got a cough or a runny nose, or they can't see properly, or their hands going, I'd have to have ginger. So I started to introduce ginger, fresh ginger shots. For anybody who's like, how do you make it? You just fucking juice the ginger in whatever way you have to do it. Caveat to that, it is spicy as a very spicy thing, and it will blow your head off if you just have it straight. I do enjoy it just straight like that. But you can sort of dilute it with some apple juice. Highly recommend having ginger in your diet, in your system at all times. Highly, highly recommend. One of the best things you can have for your immune system. But for me, what I decided to do, and I have to credit Matt for this, because he has this weird purple, pink colored shake every single morning, And like, I've known him for, I guess, maybe 4 or 5 years. And every morning he has this shake. And whenever I stay with him, after they got married, he made me one. He's like, you're the first person I've ever made this for. But anyway, long story short, it is just full of micronutrients and as much fruit and veg and good stuff that you can get in. And I was like, I'm going to give this a go. So Amazon, bought myself a new blender, really went all in on this. And I guess today was the fourth day. And essentially for me, I just have tried to pack it out with as many micronutrients and fruit and veg as possible, with the idea that if I don't eat another fruit or vegetable throughout the rest of the day, I'll be happy enough that I have ticked that box and I've covered everything I'll need in this one shake. There is no real recipe to it. The way that I've been making it is half a bag of spinach, like 3 or 4 beetroots, which is why it's purple or pink, about 100 grams of frozen blueberry, some fresh fruit, if there's some in the fridge, strawberries, banana, whatever. I've been putting my ginger in it. I have been putting 2 scoops of protein in it to tick that box. I've been putting all the other sort of powder supplements that I would take. So creatine goes in it. I got curcumin for anti-inflammatory. I got glutamine as well for digestion. I've been putting psyllium husk in it for a fiber supplement. Top it up with almond milk. And I put PB Fit in it the past couple of days as a recommendation from Kev Cody, and it was an absolute game changer. Now, it's thick as fuck. And it's hard to get through, and it's a lot. But number one, it fills me up in the morning. Number two, it's only in about 400 calories. I get about 60 grams of protein in it. I get about 20 grams of fiber from it. And I don't get that sort of like, I guess, brain fog, like distractiveness that I would have if I had a meal that early. So I can get it in and still get work done and not really need to worry about how I'm feeling or whatever else. And I genuinely feel infinitely better taking it. My digestive system is functioning optimally, let's say. And I just generally feel much better having that in. So I think I'm definitely going to try and keep that in as much as possible. Shout out to Matt. I know you've been telling me to do this for the past 5 years, but here we are 5 years later. I'm now doing it.
I mean, when I was here and I had a little bit of under the weather, you were like, go get ginger shots or whatever. And there's a lot of juiceries that will have
juice stores as well. You don't have to make it yourself.
Yeah, like there's a place here called Paul. Jamba Juice has where they use shots. And they also a lot of times will put like turmeric in from an anti-inflammatory perspective, or cayenne pepper, which gives it a little bit more spicy to it. Helps
as if it's not fucking spicy enough. I actually found a photo. Right. So I obviously used to work in a juice bar, and this is where this whole rabbit hole of immunity came from, which is ironic that I got that recipe from Matt. But anyway, I found a picture of a shot that I used to make at this time of year in Slim's, the juice bar. It was called a Flu Fighter, and essentially it was just pure orange juice, lemon juice, fresh ginger, and cayenne pepper. I put it in the hacks chat, and they were like, I just made that, and it was disgusting. I was like, yeah, it's not going to be delicious. It's there for a purpose. There is no real recipe. The way that I would say it is 85% orange juice, 10% lemon, 5% ginger, and top it off with cayenne pepper. Just be wary that the ginger is going to be spicy and the cayenne pepper is going to be spicy. But again, something that's giving you, vitamin C, getting the ginger in, that will help. It really helps, I guess, in this situation.
Yeah, and there's always the recommendations, like the traditional ones of, getting more zinc and vitamin C. Getting your micronutrients through natural sources like fruits, I find is also helpful. So like you mentioned there, making your shake there. A lot of times I'll just get, my lunch will be, I'll have them put 2 protein scoops in, and then I have a vitamin shake that, is high in vitamin C content and fruits that are naturally providing those. And I seem like that helps me a lot out when I'm doing it as well. So, it's just finding what works for you. At the end of the day, if you already have a healthy system, if your body is healthy in general, that's going to be the best defense against this type of stuff. And I think that's what you saw with like COVID. Most folks that had serious issues, and it's not obviously across the board, but had multiple comorbidities that, that were health issues that caused COVID to hit, them harder. Same thing for flu and everything else. If you, are relatively healthy in nature, your chances of knocking out that cold or that flu much faster is usually a piece of that. So, living a healthy lifestyle, making sure you're getting your micronutrients and supplementing as necessary. Those types of things, I think, can make a big difference in how fast that cold is gone. And so it's just, it's just balancing out, trying to figure out what works for you. I think the ginger shots definitely make a big deal too. At least if it doesn't, I get that little burn and it makes me feel like I'm doing something different.
You definitely feel it. Like this is health. This is what this should feel like. The other thing is, and this actually came about at the start of COVID, and at the time Callum was coaching me, and he sort of put together like an immunity handbook, is the only way I can describe it. One thing he did mention in it was supplementing with iodine as well, and the benefits of it. It will help with enhancing like degenerate cells, and it helps with B cell development, things like that. So it is, I wouldn't have too much of it, but it is something that you can sort of even throw into that shake. Like anything goes in that fucking shake. Yeah.
And there's also the options of, if you really want to get into it, some IVs, yes. To help hydrate your body as well as pump you full of vitamins and minerals. There's a lot of IV places that you can go to. Your local areas are becoming more and more popular. When I was in Vegas and I was starting to feel kind of under the weather, I went to an IV place and they pumped me full. It's their immunity boost option, which is a combination of like zinc and vitamin C and all these different nutrients and stuff like that. I did glutathione, which is a powerful antioxidant. Can help at least get that to your body much quicker to help fight off whatever you're doing if it's struggling with it. So, those could be big things out there that I think make a big difference.
Yeah, the one thing actually, I used to get them quite regularly because I used to coach a girl who ran a clinic that did them, and I used to get them every couple of weeks. And the one thing that I will say is the night, number one, you need to make sure you're hydrated. Number two, the night's sleep that you have after getting an IV infusion is the best night's sleep that you ever have. Whatever goes into it, whatever, like you sleep like an absolute baby. But yeah, they're a good shout too. And even like if you think, stay hydrated enough is a pretty simple one as well. Like make sure you're getting that in. I can't argue with that.
Well, hydrated and relaxing and giving your body time to heal. So adequate sleep. Don't do 125-pound chest presses.
I'm gonna record this as a soundbite and just send it to you every day.
Yeah. Don't relax on the lifting and the hard cardio stuff, especially from and obviously I need to take that. I did better this time. Obviously I learned.
You did.
It's all about learning. It's all about learning.
It's all a learning curve. This just seems to be one that is taking slightly longer.
It takes slightly longer, but yeah.
To sort of delve a bit deeper in that, because obviously it's the question of like, when should you go back? How much should you do and whatever else? And in your check-in this week, you were sort of talking about, so you checked in with me on Wednesday. You were talking about potentially going back to Orange Theory today, which is Friday, 2 days later. Right. And I sort of said, like, if you feel good enough to do it, then yes, by all means, go and do it. But if you want to just get something in that is, an additional output to sort of get your heart rate up and get a sweat on or whatever, just do something low intensity. So I recommended obviously just 20 minutes on the bike or whatever it is, and do something like that. You're not like absolutely drilling yourself into the ground, but you're getting some sort of movement in, because even, for me, there's a feel good factor after doing that. And I say after doing that because I don't feel good when I'm doing it, but after it, I feel like I've accomplished something, and it sort of gives you that sense of normality whenever you've had a couple of days off. then obviously sort of expect, depending on what sort of sickness or illness that you've had, like expect that whenever you go into your next gym session, you're getting back into it. Essentially, you're not going to be as strong because you potentially haven't eaten the same, you potentially aren't as hydrated or as recovered as you would have been. So just sort of expect to go in and actually just go through the session and go through the lifts and just sort of feel the movements, because there's a lot to be said for actually just feeling your body move and getting the connection back with your muscles than actually going in and trying, okay, I've been off for 2 days here, I'm going to try and PR. Dave?
Yeah. What did you say, Dave, under your breath there?
Really?
No, the low impact stuff I think is a good one. I did 20 minutes this morning on the bike, and it felt fine, no issues whatsoever. I mean, I definitely didn't feel good enough to go to Orange Theory, and wouldn't think that'd be a good idea to go and do it. And I was playing it by ear too, how I felt.
Yeah, and that's important too, because there's no I can't plan a week, except everybody who's sort of ill or sick at the minute, I'm like, just keep me posted day by day, because every day will be different. You'll feel great some days, you'll feel like shit some days. Even yesterday, like I woke up and felt a lot better than I did the day before.
Yeah.
But I still wasn't in a position. I actually got into the car to go and train. It was like everything was frozen. I was like, the gym's going to be as cold as it is in this car, but no, this isn't happening today. Back into the house. But it's being okay with that as well, and not being like, trying to be a hero in it. Do you know what I mean? It's not.
Well, it's the confidence in yourself that you're in those routines. You're going to go back into them, right? And listening to your body, I think, is important there, right?
And me. Listen to your body and me.
Yeah, most of the time. I did want to bring up the topic of supplements, because we don't talk about that enough.
Because we can't go an episode without talking about supplements.
Well, it's just and I get
also
asked all
total
the
side
time.
note before we go into it. Huberman did a podcast with your friend Dr. Adia. Is it out yet? Have you listened to it yet? I saw them tweet about it.
Is it the caffeine one?
I don't know. I only saw the tweet yesterday.
Oh, okay.
I think it's actually Dr. Adia's podcast.
Oh, okay.
Huberman was a guest.
Okay, cool. I'll have to check that out. I haven't not looked at that, because I don't look at Adia as much, because he does that whole double click thing all the time. Double click this.
I was listening to Alex Ramosi, and I think it was the same. I think it was the same video about the two sides of the same coin, and he said double click. I was like, no. Even I have I have a knee jerk reaction, because it's pissed you off so much. Like no.
Yeah, I can't handle that. No, and the reason I bring this up is, one, there was a really awesome study that came out. It's like the largest study ever done in these type of vitamin supplements, like over 800,000 participants, which is massive. It's a massive study. But the most important thing I always get asked of, like, hey, what supplements do you take? And my answer back to you is, what supplements do you need? And the truth of the matter is that the supplement industry is a lot of BS. Most of the stuff you don't need. A multivitamin, probably good for you. But when it comes to actual supplementation of things, there's only a couple of things that I would recommend to take, that we don't get enough of in our normal diets. But my diet is different than yours. Like, what I eat is different than yours. It's different than Ben's. He's in a different area, a different culture. People in Japan eat more fish than we do here in the States. You get a whole bunch of omega-3 fatty acids, So the nutritional aspects range based off geographic location, as well as what you prefer to eat. So micronutrient-wise, what you're lacking from your body is going to be completely different from what I'm lacking. So, how do I say, hey, you need to take this supplement or that supplement or this supplement or this or that? Because I don't know what your body needs. And that's why I think it's so important to do micronutrient testing, to see where your deficiencies are at and what you can maximize as part of it. And it's blood work that you can get done. You can go schedule it on a local LabCorp, look close to you. You can do Inside Tracker, which is they ship you all the stuff. You go to a local thing and they draw the blood and you ship it off to them and you get all that stuff done. There's a number of different ways to do micronutrient testing that is relatively inexpensive as well as easy to do. And, I first of all, I highly recommend that, first and foremost. Second, with this study, when I say that there's certain supplementation things that you should consider as part of your day-to-day routines, it's because it has such an impact on your overall health that I recommend these to take as part of your normal day-to-day. And this is from numerous scientists that study the research on this, as well as new studies that come out. So for me, if I were to recommend the top supplements out there, one is going to be creatine, but that's not the most important. Creatine is probably the most studied supplement. It has a lot of good pieces around building muscle, recovery, all that good stuff. But when it comes to health and longevity, this mega study that came out showed that omega-3 fatty acids, folic acid, and CoQ10 benefit the heart and longevity of your life, but beware of beta carotene. And so I'm just going to read this. This is a synopsis from upi.com. The study is actually linked in there as well. But it said, instead of singling out vitamins and minerals that may help heart health, researchers hope to their comprehensive review of many studies will pave the way for clinical trials to identify the best mix of micronutrients to supplement people's diets, since not all are beneficial and some, like beta carotene, may cause harm. That's a gist of a major analysis published Monday in the Journal of American College of Cardiology by the researchers of the United States and China. Scientists have developed an evidence-based map which for summarizing 256 meta-analysis of randomized controlled trials on micronutrients taken as dietary supplements. These studies explored the effects of a wide variety of micronutrients on blood pressure, blood lipids, blood glucose, death from any cause, cardiovascular disease, and type 2 diabetes risk. After examining 27 different types of antioxidant supplements from 884 studies involving 800,000 plus patients, the researchers said they found strong evidence that several offer cardiovascular benefits. These included omega-3 fatty acids, which decreased mortality and cardiovascular disease, folic acid, which lowered stroke risk, and coenzyme Q10 or CoQ10, which decreased death from all causes. But vitamin C, D, and E, and selenium showed no effect on long-term cardiovascular disease outcomes or reduced type 2 diabetes, according to scientists. Last part I'll read is beta carotene supplementation moderately increased the risk of heart attack and type 2 diabetes, and to a lesser extent, all-cause mortality, cardiovascular death disease, stroke risks, said the investigators. So, with these studies, it's great to see that they're looking at what's the kind of the best route from large data sets on what we can supplement into our bodies to help us live longer, live happier, not die of cardiovascular disease. One thing I thought that was interesting, I was listening to Dr. Etienne's cardiovascular piece, is that by the time a male adult hits the age of 60, 2/3 of males will experience some sort of cardiovascular event, whereas 1/3 of women will experience a cardiovascular event. So women less, prone to cardiovascular risk as men are. And any way that we can help curb that and try to keep a balance of micronutrients that help our bodies and help our heart, specifically heart issues, being one of the largest risks that we have, cardiovascular issues and cancer. Those are the things that we can hopefully supplement with to help increase those. And so, if you had to say which supplements would you, consider taking, I would say, well, based on the studies, omega-3 fatty acids, folic acid, and CoQ10 are three of the top ones that I would recommend. On top of that, I'd probably say vitamin D, as well as broccoli extracts or sulforaphane, which help repair DNA damage. There's a lot of great studies on those too. So, those are like my top 5 supplements that, I don't take a multivitamin anymore. I just take those specifically, and then I do micronutrient testing for what I'm deficient in. And I take those based off of what I need. So, for me, longevity, omega-3 fatty acids is probably number 1. So if you're just starting off on the supplement side, just get, fish oils. The benefits of those are insane. And I've read this study before on previous podcasts, but what I thought was the most fascinating about one of the omega-3 fatty acid studies was that if you're a smoker, your risk of dying was substantial, right? From numerous diseases. But if you're a smoker and you take fish oils, you will live longer statistically than someone that doesn't take fish oil. Think about that. Like the benefit there is astronomical, right? So fish oils to me are so important. You also need to make sure that you source the fish oils from good places. Rancid fish oil has been a problem in the past, so make sure they're certified through the fish oil associations, to go through a process of ensuring it's not rancid as it goes into there. So you can get the health benefits of that, but most of the supplements have gone through that, so it's usually not a major issue.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. Like, what fish oil do you use? I use the Blue Nutrition one, so that's pretty.
Yeah, I use Thorne. They have one that's called, I think it's called Super EPA and DHA. So DHA primarily being brain impact, and EPA primarily being cardiovascular increase. So fish oil has a number of health benefits. Lubrication of joints, ability to have more cognitive functions, decrease Alzheimer's risks, cardiovascular increase, or cardiovascular risk decrease. And so getting as much of that as possible seems to be a pretty good strategy. So the Thorne Super EPA and DHA, is probably my favorite. It's a little bit more expensive. And they also have fish esters. So they're extracts of just the EPA and DHA, which you can get a little bit more potency in those, but it's a little bit more expensive. But I'd say if you just go with, like Thorne, Super EPA DHA, that's going to be probably your best solution there. And that's one of the more quality products that I found out there from a fish oil perspective that I use.
Yeah, I think, well, number one, with all supplements, you should probably get a reliable source or at least a decent recommendation of where to get it from. But especially things like that there's been obviously signs or shown that, some of it is or can potentially have negative impacts.
Yeah, and taking too much of something is never a good thing, right? So it doesn't mean, take, 10 times the recommended dosage, stick with, what the studies show. And that's one thing I always get asked on supplements all the time is like, well, it says it does this, and most of the supplements that mix a bunch of things together are usually really, really low on the ingredients, and it's not equatable to the studies that came out. So like phosphoric acid, for example, which has been shown to increase mTOR production, which increases protein synthesis and muscle production, and muscle hypertrophy. That type of stuff, a lot of times is sourced really low and not in comparison to the study. So you may not be getting the benefits of those specific supplements. So you kind of got to be careful, on what you're doing, read up on things and say, well, what was the testing criteria for the scientific research that gave you the cardiovascular benefits that were shown in the studies? And, what's a safe balance of those to actually go and use? And I think that's where a lot of people get lost in is that I'm not a PhD or a doctor. I'm not a neurobiologist or, a scientist in any way, shape or form, but I can read through most of that documentation and look at, the quantities, the results, the conclusions, and understand it as a normal human being to make a determination of which type of supplement I want to go to. So, it might take me 10 minutes to go through a quick, study, one of the most recent studies, and say, okay, well, based on that, this is the supplementation type that I would, recommend for it. So, and a lot of times they'll the news article will tell you how many. So in this news article, it said, among the reviewed studies, a median dose of 1.8 grams a day of omega-3 fatty acids reduced the risk of cardiovascular disease, heart attack, and coronary heart disease. So you want to make sure you're getting around 1.8 grams a day of omega-3 fatty acids, including EPA and DHA. The folic acid supplementation, which with a daily dose average of 3 milligrams, reduced the risk of stroke. By contrast, the medium dose of 20 milligrams a day of beta carotene supplementation increased the risk of all-cause mortality, cardiovascular death, and stroke, said scientists. So CoQ10 supplementation was 50 milligrams per day. So make sure your supplement has at least 50 milligrams into it. And then you can also look at, hey, is over, going over that 100 milligrams or 200 milligrams, is that an issue? So what's the recommended ranges for those that have been proven to be safe? So just be careful on the supplementation side. You can really do a lot of damage, to your body, as well as things that aren't necessarily going to help you in any way, shape, or form. And I wouldn't expect to say, hey, am I going to see an immediate result from this? Am I going to all of a sudden look like Arnold Schwarzenegger by me taking, creatine? No, you're going to have minor increases, maybe 1% or something like that. You're probably not going to notice a difference, but it's doing something for your body that is helping you long-term based off of the studies themselves. So hopefully that's a good breakdown of supplementation, but I wanted to bring out the fish oil, folic acid, and CoQ10 ones because it was very interesting to me because those are supplements that I use very often, and it has been shown to have a large increase in reduction in cardiovascular risk as well as increase in longevity. So things to consider as you're going through and supplementing yourself.
Yeah, and I think it's important note to say, not to sort of back up the Viking multivitamin guy that we had to kick from the Discord channel, which if anybody's not in, I would highly recommend you being in. But side note on that, having everything as individual things so you can sort of control the dosage is important. I guess as well, take the time, like you're saying, to actually read through the study and find out what you need for yourself, because asking me or asking you and without context is completely fucking useless. So take the time to know what you need from a dosing perspective, and to sort of expand if you really want to go down the rabbit hole, which I know from experience of the type of people who listen, they want to know all the data and they want to do all the research. I was listening to Joe Rogan and Derek More Plates, More Dates, and they were having a conversation about supplementation, and Joe asked Derek about his supplementation. He says he uses Chronometer to track his food, which is like a ramped up version of MyFitnessPal, but it breaks down what you get from a vitamin mineral perspective as well. So you don't if you can do the studies to find out what you're deficient in, you maybe don't necessarily need to get everything that you think you need to get to from a supplement, because you can get it from actual food. So if you need X amount across the day, some of that can come from food. If you want to sort of I've used Chronometer before. It's a bit harder to use than MyFitnessPal, but if you want to if you eat the same sort of things day in, day out, it's maybe worth doing for like a week or so to know, okay, right, if I eat X, Y, and Z, I'll get this amount from actual food, and then I need to supplement with half the dose or whatever it needs to be. So you're sort of getting it truly tailored to you, and you're not fully relying on the supplementation side of things.
Yep. All about learning, and I think what's cool about all this medical research is that, we're getting new studies coming in all the time that tell us more and more and more about our body. There was just a gene identified that impacts longevity on a positive front, and so they're finding new things out about our bodies, our complexity around that. And they're also finding things that, may have not been true before in the past. Like you always hear somebody say, oh, you can only have 25 grams of protein per serving. That's not true. That's not how our bodies work. So, we're learning more and more about the data, the facts, the science about how our bodies work and how to best optimize ourselves to push ourselves forward, to increase muscle mass, to have better cardiovascular health, to, live better lives and more quality lives. And the last thing I'll hit on, before we go here, because we only have a few more minutes here, is, the medicine practice still has a long way to catch up in how it looks and treats people. You look at today, the medicine field is very reactive in nature. And it's, hey, if you have a symptom or you're not within this specific baseline, you need to go on this or do this in order to prevent that. They're not looking at health and longevity. One of the biggest shockers that I heard from Dr. Attia was that if you have high LDL and HDL levels in your 20s, your risk of cardiovascular disease increases by 80% as you get older. And he said, we have medicine that can control HDL and LDL levels in our 20s, which would essentially reduce by 80% our cardiovascular risks. But we don't do that because it's not part of the current medicine practices that we use today. Same thing for like TRT and testosterone replacement. Even the studies are showing how amazingly beneficial it is for yourself. It was funny because Dr. Attia actually said, if I go to if I get a handful of 10 PCP doctors and I say, is TRT good for you or not? And Dr. Attia is one of the foremost leading researchers on this kind of medicine 3.0 stuff and everything else. Those 10 doctors would say, no, it increases your chances of cancer. And that's what they were taught, 20 years ago, 20, 30 years ago or longer. And what the studies show is no, not at all. That's not the case. There's many studies that show that it doesn't increase your risk in any chance, or they would say it's an accelerator of fire to cancer that may already be there, which also has been disproven as well. So, it's taking away the old practices and keeping up to speed with the latest data and being able to move with that data and the research that removes that historical, type of thing. So I think it's just going to take time, but, focus on longevity, focus on what you can do. And if you have the ability to find a doctor that is very much up to speed on latest research, there are really some cool things you can do to optimize yourself to live longer, happier, feel better, all that good stuff as things go along. But that's our podcast for today.
Find a different doctor.
That's right. I agree. Well, you want to close? You close it.
No, you always close. I started, you finish.
All right, I'll close. All right. Well, thanks everybody for listening to Hacking Your Health. Another great week, another great episode. We'll be back at you next week with a fresh new podcast. Thank you all for the community. It's so awesome to see, the folks in the Hacks program, on the Discord channel, on the We Hack Health, Twitter streams and tags. It's awesome to see the progress of everybody. We get so motivated from you sharing your progress and your struggles and your successes and everything else. It just keeps us going on this whole thing. So thank you all from such an awesome community perspective. We'll catch you all next week. If you think we're doing a great job, please share out to friends, family, folks that you would think would benefit from this. And we'll talk to you later. Thanks very much.
I want to shout out before we go. I need to find the tweet. The guy who said he'd lost 70 pounds from listening to the podcast.
Yes. Isn't that awesome?
I said so many tweets. I think his name was Adam, but I don't want to fuck it up because I want to give him creds. Anyway, the moral of the story is if you're taking action, you're getting shit done. We appreciate it because it's cool to sort of see these things happen because essentially we just have a conversation once a week.
It was Adam.
Yeah, Adam.
It was TNG Adam on Twitter. Been following the advice from the podcast for the last 11 months, down 70 pounds so far. Still have more to do, but getting there. I mean, isn't that amazing?
Yes, it's absolutely insane. And that's what I mean.
Incredible.
Like, essentially, you and I just have a conversation once a week and put it on the internet, but people are listening, actually taking action and getting shit done. And one of the biggest things that I've realized over time is you taking control of your health and well-being has impacted so many people, and everybody that does the same thing will impact more and more people. And that's just literally how we can create a better world, essentially. So yeah, thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for taking part. And I'll catch you next week.
Good.